Shall we begin?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Best Practices on Cluster Spring Series, Event 3. And this is the final event of the series. We will continue the series most likely in autumn as well, with the different topics for sure. So thank you for joining, and I hope you joined last 2 episodes. And if you haven't already, you might have already received the video recordings and archived Q&A. And the collaborative document we are sharing using it today that's has links of the previous video recordings as well as Q&A archived. And also the course page, which has this link of the same. Just before we start today's session, I just want to say something about our course. Today, we are going to have more interactive discussion on file transfer using a tool called rsync. You got the information on email yesterday. And then we will discuss further on the storage areas on HPC, as well as our national research data storage system NIRD. So as like previous events, we use the collaborative document for Q&A. You are welcome to ask questions. And here, there are some icebreaker questions for you to answer. That's since Bergen weather is very nice, I can't help asking you about the weather of today. So please let us know where are you from and how is the weather there. And then there are some 2 questions about which tool you are using to transfer files from your computer to the remote system and vice versa. And since we are talking about NIRD, I just would like, it would be very nice if you could say us if you are a NIRD user or you do want to use a NIRD, or if you don't want to use NIRD, or you are not using NIRD as well. And below, you can ask your questions. Just a reminder that how to edit this page. There on top left, you see this pencil icon, and click it and type it. It's just a markdown format. And when you are not typing, go back to the view mode with this eye icon. So if you don't, if you are joining this course first time, so let me tell you about a little bit about us and RIS. We are a collaboration of 4 universities: University of Bergen, Oslo, Tromsø, and NTNU, and together with a public company called Sigma 2, we collaboratively operate our national e-infrastructure services. And my name is Dhanya Pushpadas, by the way. You got my emails from me. I am the course coordinator. Today, I will be discussing these sessions with Radovan, my colleague from Tromsø. Radovan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, very happily. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Radovan Bast, University of Tromsø, and I'm so much looking forward to discuss with Dhanya the topic of file transfer, because it's something all of us have to do. I mean, it's one of the first things we do, that we have to get data onto the cluster before we can do any computation. So important topic, looking forward to talk about it. I will also help out looking at your questions, raising your questions. The more questions you ask, the better it will be. And I will try to help keep the discussion going. Looking forward.
Yeah, thanks, Radovan. And so it will be mostly an interactive discussion. As I mentioned in the email, there will not be any exercise. You are free to follow. And if you want to test a few commands we will show today, you are welcome to do that as well. If there is anything you are wondering, please use these collaborative documents about the questions, and we are happy to assist. Today, since we have this all hands meeting at NRIS, it's just me and Radovan for this session. Usually we will have more colleagues to help out, but still we are happy to help out. If there is something we need more concrete answer, we will get back to you on this document later. But just feel free to ask a lot of questions, and we will publish this question later as we did for the previous episodes. So you can go back and read it later. If there is something we need to update it later, we will do that as well. Of course, one thing very important, we are recording this event. Most likely we will publish it, we will publish it after editing the video. So you please feel free to switch off your cameras so that you don't see in any kind of recording. So if you wish. So anyway, we will be editing the videos to make sure that there is no content from the participants are visible. And one more thing is we follow the Carpentries Code of Conduct. It's being friendly and respectful to each other. That's both applied to us as well as you. And don't use any sensitive information on this document. You can type it anonymously and we will not know who is typing what. But please follow the code of conduct. So I see some answering, someone from Tromsø, Bergen, Trondheim, and Oslo. That's good. We have all the sites included today.
So please, everybody, try to write something. This is also for us the test to see that you know where to ask questions and where to interact. You find this document either in the email or in the Zoom chat. And if you click on the link and on top you find a pen button, you can edit and write. And about the question 2, which tools are you using? It's very possible that the tool that you're using is not even listed. So please add your tool. So there are many tools to get files from your computer to a different computer. And you can add a tool like this. I will try that now on question 2. So there could be some other tool. What other tools exist? Is it so I added the 3 or 4 that I know and use. Fazila, exactly.
Mobaxtem and Fazila.
Oh, yeah.
Are you using that tool, sir, Radovan, or?
So not personally, no. So I have used the first 4. So here it's good for us to know an overview of. I'm sure that there are 10 different tools that are used to get data from one computer to the other.
Yeah. Which tool are you using? Means from the beginning, or I know you use rsync now, but when you started, which tool you're using to transfer data?
So like 20 years ago, I started using WinSCP a lot. Then for a long time, I was using SCP, and sometimes I still am. And like a year ago or 2 years ago, I really used rsync more and more. And we will discuss the advantages, like why I switched from SCP to rsync. But on a daily, it's SCP and rsync.
Yeah.
For me. How about for you?
Yeah, I started with SCP. I think I used I'm not sure, but when I used the Windows, I used something like dragging, and I don't remember what's the name it is. But I started on command line. I started with SCP and still have this SCP on my muscle memory. So I use it whenever like 1 or 2 files to transfer, just go there. But I lately learned rsync. That means the admin people, they usually use rsync to back up things. So that's a tool they very extensively used by the HPC or system admins.
I just remembered one that I also used. It was FTP.
Oh, yeah, I did.
15 years ago, it was like the main tool for me.
Yes, of course. I forgot that as well. Yeah, but there are many people use SCP and rsync. So today we are going to discuss about rsync, and attendees, we recommend to use rsync, but on Windows it is not default. Rsync is not default, right, Radovan?
That's correct. So as far as I know, and I admit that I'm working here on a Linux machine. SCP these days comes by default on Windows, but not rsync. For rsync, you have to do one more install step, which was then detailed in the email.
Yeah, and also we mention it in our documentation about Windows subsystem for Linux.
But if you don't have it, I would say it's not a problem. It's not a problem for today. Please don't disconnect. I think it can be still interesting to see. We will show how it works, and we will discuss what are the advantages. And then maybe you get excited about it and can install it later. So please still stay in the course, even if you don't have it installed on your machine, on your computer.
Yeah, just emphasize that this is mostly a discussion to let you know what is on our system, how to use it effectively rather than doing an exercise today. And we will show a couple of demos with rsync, maybe how to take the snapshots if you deleted something something from your home directory or anywhere or project directory, how to retrieve your data from. So a couple of demos, otherwise we will stick on our discussion, and I hope that will be very interesting for you to know about things. And we have all the material available. You can try and test it later as well. So shall we go about rsync? And on the collaborative document, you have this file. All the lesson material for the day is linked on top of the page, day 3, below the day 3 headlines. So we first will go to file transfer. I hope we can finish it before the break. There will be a break in between at 11 to 15 minutes break. So we will stick on that break, and I think it's a sunny day, and everyone should have at least a 15 minutes break. So if you click on this on the page, you will go to our documentation where we discuss where you have all the detail about file transfer, what we recommend here. So as we mentioned, as we see, you are using a lot rsync, SCP, and other tools. We recommend rsync. There are some advantage over SCP or similar tools on rsync. We will discuss it. How do you prefer, Radovan? Should we discuss about the advantages, or should we try with rsync first and discuss the advantages?
I would say maybe let's try it, and then we can discuss how does it compare to SCP and what are the advantages.
So should I can create one terminal. I try to copy something from Saga to from. So I have my, just let me fix my.
So here you will copy from one cluster to a different cluster, but
yes,
we can imagine that it's the same mechanism as copying from my computer to the cluster.
Yeah, it's a remote file transfer anywhere. So the top red box is the history that you will be viewing. I have set it up for from as well. We'll see, it will show you. And
so it will show us always these like last 5 commands you type, so that we can, if it's too fast, then people can see what was the history of it.
Yeah, as you can see, I used a lot of clear commands to make sure. Is it visible and is it readable?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, so I have some files, 2 files mostly on one of the folder. Here I just will, it's inside the folder, my data. So let me list it. So I have 2 files from inside the folder, my data, in this area of on Saga. So I would like to transfer these files. I would say copy, because when I rsync it, it will still stay here on my Saga machine. So I will copy this from Saga to from. So I'm not moving it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because transferring sounds like moving. Yeah, good point. Yeah. And these are big files, or how large are these NetCDF files, these .nc files?
I think it is. Can you see that? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Of course.
Yeah, okay. So not too large, but
Not too large.
couple of megabytes.
Yeah. So I was not sure about Saga's file system. If it is slow, I don't want to have any. Okay, I think I will clear that. So I plan to copy all the data directory as it is to from. So we have this commands listed here on the documentation. I'm going to use it the same as it is. So you have to use your username and the cluster name.
And here you take the second line, right? Because we are copying a directory, not a file.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. So I'm using these options on rsync. We will discuss it later, but do you know the info equal to progress to what? Why I should use it? Can I use it?
It will give us a progress bar, but we can, if we leave it out, it will still work. But it will. Here we if this takes longer. In this case, it will be very quick. But if I would copy gigabytes or terabytes of data, I would like to see how far am I into the copying.
Yeah. I usually don't use it for my file transfer, but for since we have it in our documentation, and I am using an option -a that will. How do you explain the -a option? Is it like preserves ownership and timestamp? That's I think, and also it included the -r option, which copies folders recursively. That is specifically we use when if SCP, if you are transferring directories, you should use -r option. Otherwise, it will not work. So if you have -a option, it's -r option is also included in that.
So it will copy the directory, everything below, and it will not change the timestamp, so the last modified date. It will preserve it, and it will also not change the ownership.
So I have a file directory called my data, and I use /. We will discuss a little bit about the // and not having the / later. And this is my username, and I'm going to transfer it to from.
Yeah. And the username that you typed is the username on the machine you copy it to. In your case, it's the same, but sometimes it's not the same.
Yeah, most likely it is same for all the NRIS clusters, maybe not for your university cluster or your personal other clusters. I guess on NRIS clusters, you will have the same username for all the clusters. So I have the same username on NIRD as well as on the From and the Betsy. So that's why I'm using. Before I go further, should I copy my data to the home, or should I copy to a specific path?
So I think I often copy to a specific path, because otherwise I have all the files just are in my home and it's then like disorganized.
Yes, and then I will see on From. Here I have, okay. I will create a file called best practices. Okay, just to make sure that So I have this path on From. This is on From. So you can see that my login on From. This is another terminal. So I have this path here. I copy this and put it on this space. So if you don't put the path here, this will copy to us to your home directory. So
yeah, one thing I'm wondering is if we even need to create it on. I think we can verify that later. I'm not sure, but it's maybe we didn't even have to create it, but it was not a mistake.
Yeah. I'm not sure it will go like that, because if I don't create and specify the path, the my data will go to the home directory. It will not create anything there, or like a best practice at 2024 or something. That's my
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, and now you need also at the end my data and
a forward slash, of course. I'm copying.
Yes.
Means I'm copying from Saga and copying to from. That's what I'm doing.
Yes, correct.
So then it will ask my password on from. If you haven't set it up, passwordless login on from Saga. So that's, I haven't. So I am supposed to do my
and
password.
The thing that I would have maybe done, but I think the effect will be the same, is I would have intuitively actually, after the best P Spring 2024 / I would have also written my data directory. Okay. But I think the effect will be the same. We can verify actually.
Yeah, we will try it. Okay. Okay, that's.
I see why. I don't see why.
Okay, let me go and progress. Okay, I saw. I didn't use a slash here, so that's really important. Yeah. So typing my password, I'm not used to do that, so it will take some time. Okay, yeah, I'm not used to type.
And no problem. In the meantime, I can answer one question on the notes. So question number 1, which is, can one leave out the username on the rsync command? In your case, it was, so there is the username at. So here, question number 1: can one leave out the username in the rsync command?
Okay.
And you can leave it out if it is the same. If you have the same username on the machine you copy from and you copy to.
Yeah.
So in this case, we could have left it out, but it doesn't harm to type it.
Yeah. Yeah. So why we have this on here as a username is usually we transfer between our computer to the remote system. Most of the time on the remote system, like on NRIS clusters, you will have a different username rather than you have it on your computer or university computer or your personal computer, because that username is created while you apply for user account. Some people, if it is same, most for me it is not same if I want to do it from my computer. So have you seen that this is, I have this progress report here since I use it?
Oh yeah, 100%. That looks good.
Yeah.
And it gives us some information about how much time, how much data per second. But that looks pretty encouraging.
So shall we go to from and check if I have it? So I was supposed to have this under best practice, best P Spring 2024. So let me see. So you know what happened? I don't have the my data directory.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So at the end.
Yeah, if I didn't use the / here on Saga, this command here, I would get my data directory, and I will get the files under my my data directory. So it's use of the /.
Yeah, exactly. So this slash, and we discuss it then in the documentation. We have a discussion on what happens if you include it or leave it out. What I do is I add the /, but then I also add the directory in the target. So I specify like which directory, what do I want to copy, and where do I want it to end up.
Okay,
here.
let me
so
try.
This is what I do.
Okay, yeah, I am adding my data directory there. Should I use the slash or not?
So in this case, I think it doesn't matter whether it is there or not.
Yeah.
But
Let me
you can add it there just for consistency. But I think here now it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But this is what I do. I'm like explicit of which directory is on the source side, which directory is on the target side.
Okay, let me. Okay, sorry, I think I.
No problem. And everybody, please ask more questions. And no question is too simple.
So I have 100% transfer, and I will see how is it here. Yeah, so I have my data directory, and I will have my if I list what is under my data, I have all 2 netcdf files I transfer from Saga. So is there any commands that any options we need to discuss? Just want to mention that this info progress to option sometimes not work on some version of rsync. I don't usually use it, so when I was checking it on my Mac, I get unknown syntax error. That's why I was transferring it from Saga to From. But you can fix it if you want. But that option is not necessary unless you want to have info progress. Means you want to have a visibility on what the progress status of your file transfer.
Yeah, and as we will discuss, copying with rsync is typically fast. So very often we don't need the progress. It takes a second or two.
Yeah.
It's really only important if I'm transferring extremely many files or quite a lot of data, and I want to know where am I in the process.
So, and just want to mention, usually it's not like this small files or so small amount of data we need to transfer in between. Because of this course, we have to finish it on time. I didn't have a lot, like gigabytes of data. So most likely you will have a lot of data to transfer. Is that what you have when you want to do some work on your remote cluster, Radovan?
So my own situation is that it's often not the amount. So it's not a lot of gigabytes or terabytes in my case. In my case, it's often very many tiny files.
Yeah.
Like 10,000 files, and they are all very small. And we have a nice question, which is when not to use rsync.
Okay.
And we promise that we would also give you now motivate why, what are all the nice things about rsync, when not to use it. So I can try to answer. I don't know any disadvantage of it, but as we discussed, sometimes it's not immediately available on your computer. So if you install a new Windows operating system, it might not be readily available. And often tools like SCP, so the secure copy, very often they are equally fine.
Yeah.
Maybe if I express it differently, if you copy a few files, not extremely many files, if it's only a couple of files, the difference between SCP and rsync is minimal. So then SCP is fine too. Rsync starts to shine when we copy very many files, or if there is a risk that the transfer can be interrupted. But we will talk about it in a second. I will just try to answer this in writing.
Yeah, thank you. And one more thing about this question is, if you have a disk mounted on your cluster and you want to copy from that, you don't need to use rsync or SCP kind of tool. You can just copy CP command. So that time you don't need to use that. So we will talk about when we talk about NIRD, because NIRD is mounted on login nodes of Saga, From, and Betsy. So if you want to transfer data access data, then you can use a CP or move command if you really want to move it.
That's a great point about the mounting. I will add it to the answer.
Okay. So then, yeah, it is already mentioned in our documentation that transferring files. Yeah, where is it? I hope I have seen it somewhere when I was updating the documentation. I think I did it, but most likely it will be in the documentation about using CP and move, but we will discuss it further.
Yeah, I saw that also when preparing. Oh, yes, it is further below. We will get there.
Yeah. So since we were recommending, one is the biggest reason for me to use rsync is it will not transfer file that is already existed if the transferring is broken because of network or any other reasons. So it will start from where it stops. But with SCP, it starts from the beginning itself if we do that SCP again. That's for me, it is the most advantaged use of rsync.
Yeah. Right. So which means that if ever you are unsure, did the copy really work? Because maybe network stopped for a second, you can just run the command again, and it will not do everything again if it's not necessary. It will only you can define it so that it only updates the files that need to be copied.
Yeah, it's resume from where it stopped. So first it will check with some checksum. I guess it's use some checksum to see the files and update it from there. Not sure how it works on SCP, but I know that it starts from the beginning.
If you scroll up a little bit, we will see also we have like this advantage. Yeah, now we can see the advantages. So if they already exist and do not differ, it will not transfer them. I also like the second option, this rsync update, is that with this I can actually prevent myself from accidentally overwriting files in the destination, because sometimes they are newer in the destination. So rsync is potentially safer.
Yeah. So you will have this is the reason mostly that rsync is widely used for backup as a tool for backup by the system admins. These two specific advantages. And yes, one other thing is you can compression and compress the files together when you are singing. For SCP, you have to first compress the files, then you have to start it, because you can use the compression of a lot of files together while you do it. Anything else you want to mention, Radovan?
And I think we don't have it listed here, but for me, the one of the biggest advantages, and I think you have it here on the bottom of your screen, is when transferring very many files.
Yeah.
So we have this comparison there. This is a little test I did with 5,000 files.
Yes.
A little bit further up, and then the difference is massive. And so if you want, I can say something about it. Or so what I did. This timing test. What I tried to do, and we see it here on the bottom of the screen. I tested transferring one big file, and for one big file, this file txt, and I don't even remember how big it was. It took 80 seconds, and it doesn't matter whether it's SCP or async. And then if I turned on the compression, so that's this -AZ. With compression, it took a little bit less time. But then the big difference is, if you scroll down just to half a screen, here the big difference was when I was transferring many small files. And in the example, I created 5,000 files. In fact, I took one big file and I chopped it into 5,000 pieces. And then I tried to copy the 5,000 files. And then the difference is huge. So on SCP, it took minutes, so 800 seconds, whereas it was 10 times less time when using rsync. And this is because I think rsync keeps the connection open. It creates a connection between the source and the destination and copies the files over. And my feeling is that SCP has to then create a new connection 5,000 times. And this creating a connection, copying the file, closing a connection suddenly starts to show up in the timing. So for me, that's in the way I work, that's a big plus for rsync.
So did you split the big file to different? Yeah, you have created here how to create the first.
If somebody wants to test it out, I have this. Oh yeah, I started with a file that is 100 megabyte large, and I made 5,000 small files out of it. But the take-home message is here: if you have very many small files, go for rsync. It will be order of magnitude faster.
Yeah.
And the reason is not the transfer speed, but the reason is the establishing connection and re-establishing connection for every single file, which is not necessary for rsync.
Yeah, this is something, the next point that we already mentioned, that a NIRD is mounted on the login nodes of the cluster. So you can use copy CP command or move command on the cluster login nodes to copy or move files. But, if you want to have copy large amount of data from NIRD, I think that best option is do it from the login node of NIRD rather than from the HPC node. But small file transfers, it is CP commands is enough. I will discuss it a little bit when we go to the NIRD session, because why I suggested this, because there are suboptimal because of the file system on NIRD and on the clusters are different. So if you do it from cluster login node for large amount of data, it can be suboptimal. We can have a discussion.
Mm-hmm. Can I just clarify here?
Yeah.
Because when I started working on Unix, Linux, the word mounting was a new thing to me. And I just wanted to clarify a little bit the concept of what does it mean to be mounted. And I think it's just very similar to when you look at your like file navigator, or is it called Explorer? I don't know. You see sometimes you have different hard drives, like hard drive C, hard drive D, and if you plug in an external hard drive into your computer, it will show up as a path. And it's a very similar concept. So this is the same thing as mounting.
Yeah.
Which means that here, the people who behind NIRD and behind these clusters have set it up in a really nice way so that it's mounted, means that the storage looks like a hard drive. Although the actual storage system, and we will say more about it later in the course, is maybe even located in a completely different place in Norway, but it looks just like a hard drive, and it looks like a hard drive connected to the same computer. Which means that if you then want to copy files or move files, you can do it with the usual Linux commands: copy, CP, and move, and you don't need this remote transferring, because to the computer it looks like a local hard drive, although it's not.
Yeah, thanks. Great point about mounting. Radovan, I didn't really thought about that. I use it a couple of times. Yeah. So shall we go about the parallel rsync? Have you been using that, Radovan? Maybe we could discuss a little bit about this why to do if parsing is not fast enough?
So I don't need it myself, but we have been supporting some users who needed to transfer an enormous amount of data.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you follow what we told learners and do rsync, sometimes it can still take days. What if you need to transfer like terabytes or I don't know, a petabyte of data? And here we have some recommendations of what you can do if you have an enormous amount of data. You can still improve the transfer speed. And one option is that, so there is a way to run multiple rsyncs in parallel. So if I wanted to transfer an enormous amount of data, I would divide the data into chunks. And you could transfer these different chunks in parallel. What is the disadvantage of it? The disadvantage is that at some point you might actually saturate the bandwidth, the network bandwidth for yourself or even for the cluster. It also might saturate the compute bandwidth, especially if you use compression. So I think the long story short, what I want to say is that if you need more, it's possible, but I would give two recommendations, and one is plan for it, because it might still take some time. Don't start on the last day or before the deadline. And I also recommend to contact us and let's do this together. Let's plan it together. So if I wanted to transfer lots of data, I would contact support and tell us about it. Tell us how much data, where you need it, and then we can assist you in this. We can give you tips on, and we can also prepare for it. It's also nice for us to know that somebody needs to transfer lots of data. Maybe let's script it so that it, I don't know, runs overnight and doesn't affect others users much.
Yeah, good point. So we are not going to do this as parallel options here, but because it's a lot of data, I don't want to have it in on live sessions. But just want to to let you know about that this option exists and what you can do when you want you have this kind of circumstances. But do we have any specific questions? No. Please ask more questions on anything is unclear here. So yeah, sometimes most often we get this broken pipe error during transfer. Have you used this screen or TMOX when transferring data, Radovan?
Or sometimes I have. So this the problem can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So this broken pipe means it's like the network connection can get interrupted. And this only applies if you have a transfer that takes hours. I never see this for like short transfers. And then there are tools like Dhanya mentioned, so TMAX screen, which can help keeping a session open even if the network connection gets interrupted. Are you using those?
Sometimes, but I will use it on the remote cluster. Then this DNS problem, I think I managed to not have this broken pipe when I used the screen option from Saga.
Yeah, I also never see this really myself. And if I would get this error, I wouldn't even worry much because I would just restart the rsync. It will resume where it left off. But here we give a recommendation on how you can. So if you have many hours to copy and you don't want to have trouble like this, And we also give an explanation of why this happens. And this one reason why this can happen is that this domain name service, so the server which matches internet addresses to internet names, it sometimes it can do like a cleanup once per day, and you can prevent this problem if you use the IP addresses directly.
Yeah.
So this is only relevant if you need to transfer lots of data, you don't want any interruptions there, then you can follow this advice here to figure out what is the IP address of the computer you try to copy to, and then you can use the IP address directly.
Yes. So this is the command ns lookup and this cluster name. Do you want me to show that, or?
Yeah, let's see what we see then if you do the ns lookup.
Yeah. So let me move my terminal.
And
so
you will do it from maybe?
Yeah, it's my home. Like this is my home.
Good.
So.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that I have IP addresses, 3 IP addresses. Is it towards the login nodes?
Yeah. And why are there 3? So sometimes we have 3 or 5, and this is because when people log into Saga, you will actually be sort of almost randomly assigned one of the 3, and this is done to balance the load so that not all the users go to the same server. And if you log in again, maybe you land on a different login node. But now since you see the addresses directly, you can also decide I want to be on the same one all the time. You can also log into one of these directly, and it will still work.
But just even though if you log in each log, not all that contents in your home directory, it will be the same. It doesn't mean that it is changing. It's just that you get in with different doors. That's how I see it. You can get into the cluster login. Cluster home in different doors, login 1 or login 2. It doesn't matter. The contents will be the same, what you see inside your home directory or your project directory.
Yeah, good point. It's like a hotel with 3 lobbies, but they all connect to the same building.
Yes, I think we discussed what we were planned to discuss about rsync file transfer. Do you think we missed anything? Any questions?
Hopefully not, but we would like to see more questions. So please ask more questions or comments. None of them are too simple, too stupid. It's also okay to ask questions not about file copying. So if you have a question about the cluster, ask it as well, and we will try to answer.
Yes, and if any kind of question related to these HPC courses, so if we cannot answer it, we will update it later. So you're welcome, and it's very nice to have more questions. Then we know that you are there and you're interacting with us. Should we move to the next session and do it halfway until the next week break? We have 10 minutes, 11 minutes before the break. But you suggest, Radovan, just discuss a little bit on the storage areas of HPC clusters and take a break and come back.
Yeah, as you like, or we could take the break first and then come back, whatever you find is more useful. And so just to let everybody know, we have now 2 more sections to come. One is where we talk about the storage areas on HPC clusters, and then we will also talk about this NIRD system.
Yeah. Okay, then maybe we could take a break. Everyone can have some time to relax a bit before we talk about storage areas on HPC cluster and NIRD. It is kind of a linked topic, so we could have it together. Shall we take a 15 minutes break until 11:05?
Excellent plan. I'm adding it to the notes so that everybody knows, and I will also add it to the chat. So we'll be back on 11:05. Something I added because And I think the main point is here. So this is a shortcut that actually I personally use because then I don't have to type so many things.
Mm-hmm.
But the important thing I wanted to add here is that rsync looks into your .ssh config and maybe that's the more important part, where you can configure which username you have on which cluster. So then you don't need to type it every time. So on my computer, I type rs folder and where I want to have it, and it does everything. So just for info.
Good. And there is one question about reading and writing large files from Docker images.
Yes, and I think this is not off topic. It's a good question.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I can answer it. But do you have any suggestion about it, Radovan? How to do that? I really don't know whether it is attach the volume or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm not completely sure what exactly is meant, but there are a couple of things that it could mean, and we can comment on it. So it can be that one issue is network access. So depending on if this is, so I don't know whether this is meant like when I create the image or when I use it. If it's when you use it, then it can be good to know that there is different network access on the login nodes and on the compute nodes. And if you ever experience problems with network access on the compute nodes, there are some ways of, so there is in principle network access, but it is so-called proxied. If you have problems with that, you can write to our support and we can help you debug it. But that can be one issue. So if you download, if you copy lots of data, or well, if you copy data from the internet when using the image, that's one issue. The other issue that came to my mind is the mounting. So when you work with containers, then some partitions, so some parts of the file system are mounted by default and some are not. And for instance, the home, so I often work with, not with Docker, but with Uptainer or Singularity. It's the same idea, it's just a different technology. And then the home is mounted by default, but the cluster, sorry, the cluster work part is not. And then there is a command to mount it. So
Yes.
that's another thing that came to mind. And then the third thing that came to my mind is that if you work with many small files, then we are typically working on a network file system. And this is what we will discuss in the next section now. The different storage areas have different pros and cons. And it could be then beneficial, like, so if this is needed when I create the Docker image or when I use it, I don't know, it could be beneficial to be on different storage areas, but we will discuss that now in the next section.
Thanks, Radovan. In meantime, if you have a specific use case on this, you can mention it on the document and we could come back with you more precise answer.
And we will also, the things that we just said in words, we will also write in more detail as soon as we have some time.
Yeah, thank you. And shall we move on the next topic? That is storage areas on HPC cluster. So that lesson material is linked on top of the page or just after the head, day 3 head line. So let's move on that part. So yeah. So when you have applied for a user account on the cluster, you need to have a project to apply for a user account, right, Radovan?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there are different areas to store files and other data when you're working together as in a project, together in a group. or when you work individually. It depends upon your workflow. So we will discuss about the storage areas on HPC and the do's and don'ts and the warnings you have to remember, very important warnings, so that you don't lose your data. So that we will discuss a little bit in the next half an hour, almost 20-25 minutes. Yes. So here on the documentation, you can see a table which summarize different storage areas for HPC clusters. This is on the clusters, HPC clusters, not on the storage system. So storage system is on storage system, it is a bit different. You could see that first it is cluster home user. That's where you enter when you log into your system. And there are some scratch area and local scratch and user work area and the project. That's the space specifically for the project members. If you got an access on our training project, you will have a project space for you on Saga and from, which is NN9970, which when you applied, you have that on your application, so that you can have access to the project, the specific project. If you have more projects, you will have access to different project spaces. And there will be also a shared area. That's also, it's not open for everyone. That's my understanding. Shared area is specific group based shared area, right, Radovan? Or
So the shared part is really on demand. If people, this is when different projects need to share data across projects. So I think only very few projects need to do that. Most of the time, you just want to share data with your colleagues inside the same project. But if you are in a situation that you want to, for instance, use a database across projects, then we can set up this shared data space for you.
And for that, you have to contact the support, and that shared area also will be available also to these projects which need to share data. Not everyone on the cluster. That's also kind of a private, even though we say it is shared.
Yeah, it is shared between projects, not shared with everybody.
So what I meant is user area, your home, kind of work directory, as well as your project and shared area is kind of private areas. So we have some storage policy for that. You can read it a little bit about it. And local scratch that it doesn't have on Betsy, but only implemented on From and Saga. Have you ever used local scratch, Radovan?
Only very little, only for experimentation. And I think we will maybe discuss when that can be good. So I think the big difference with local scratch and everything else is that a local scratch, it's really a disk, it's a hard drive that is on the compute node. Everything else is a network file system. So the file system is not on the compute node. The file system is in a different cabinet. It's maybe in the same room, maybe not even in the same room. So the local scratch can be interesting if it's limited in space, but it is possibly faster if you have lots of small files and you can access them sort of directly on the compute node. So that's the big difference between the local scratch and all the other things that we listed here.
Yeah. So that there is purpose also listed, like on home, and that is your user data, mainly your programs code or some input data or something. And the scratch is per job data when you submit a job on the compute nodes. The same for the local scratch. So the important is staging and job data for data on the user work area. So we will discuss a little bit about all these things and project data and shared data. These are the purpose. The project data is for when you collaboratively work in a project and you want to have the codes and everything to be shared with your colleagues in the same project, it's better to use the project data so that everyone can have access on the same. Similar with the shared data. So there are something about default quota here and also backup. If you, I cannot share it together, everything, but if it's home scratch like that. So you have quota, a default quota on home directory that is 20 gigabytes and 100,000 files. That is backed up only if quota is sent first. Do you want to comment on about the default quota on home directory, Radovan? It's something we get a ticket regularly about the quota.
Yeah, so it is limited in space. 20 gigabyte is not too much. Also 100,000 files, it sounds like a lot, but it's really easy to fill up 100,000 files, especially if you install, for instance, a Conda environment into your home. So we have this quota in place because it is a network file system. It is a shared file system. We want to make sure that the system works well for everybody, and that's why we have to have these quotas. And what it means is that on your home, really, I keep my scripts, my run script, job scripts, input files, and maybe the results if they are not too big. That's what I keep on my home. Advantage it is backed up. But if I accidentally, for instance, install a Conda environment into my home, it's very easy for me to fill it up. And then what you will see when you try that is you will see that this quota exceeded, and then you cannot create new files. And then typically people send us an email and ask how can that be, and we have a whole page about how quota works and how you can fix problems.
Yeah.
But what it often means is that you want to keep things like Conda environments and bigger files. You want to not keep them in your home. You want to keep them in other spaces here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I have some experience when I filled quota intentionally to test something, and then I couldn't save my text editor file, just one edit. So it was giving me error. Sometimes you may not know that it was not saying something like you filled up quota, but some other error. So it is always good to check if you have some error, similar error, or showing that you don't have enough quota to run or do any kind of operation on the system. File transfer, everything will stop if you exceed your quota. For this purpose, I haven't prepared exceeding my quota on any of the system, but I could just maybe show the command to check what is the quota and things. What do you think?
And I just added it. That's a great idea, and I added it to the notes so that people know the command. So whenever you think that you might have filled up the disk, or you are unsure why is it full and where is it full, we have this tool called deusage, like disk usage or something. And this is a tool that we have developed, which gives you an overview of why and where.
Yeah, I could check my deusage command on Saga. So I am logged into Saga. So just let me check. This is the command, and if I can you see this screen?
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah, I could maybe could do it a little bit. So you will have. Yeah. So as you can see, I have on my home directory, I have 18.2 gigabytes. My quota is 20, and I have around 75,000 files, and my limit is 100K. So if you filled up your quota, you might get different exceed these values on your home directory. it will stop most of the operation. Most likely until this is fixed, and I guess backup will be stopped when you exceed your quota. That's my understanding. Am I right?
So I think okay, so in my understanding, the backup will not really stop, but actually, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it's more that, yeah, let's,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
but
of course, backup will be stopped, but you will not be doing anything other than that. Because when it's stopped, you cannot operate anything on your home directory, so it's okay if it's stopped as well. So when the quota is enforced, this your home directory backed up. So if you use the rm command and delete something on your home directory, there is a possibility that you can retrieve the file. We will show it a little bit on that later. And as you see that project area and home area are backed up, but not your work area and the scratch. It's very important. People usually use work area a lot to store their data, and sometimes they lose their data because it's not backed up and it has an auto clean policy. It's almost 21 days, if I'm right. Or if the file system exceeds 90% or 95%, they will delete even without the policy, because otherwise no one can do any other effective work on the system. Any comment on that, Radovan?
Yeah, so if you just let's be very clear on that. If you can scroll to the left on your, just that we see the names again on in the table.
Yes.
So so that one, it's super useful because I use it a lot. It's basically unlimited in space. You can at least use it as if it was unlimited. You can put as many files and as much files as you like, but there is no backup. And also the files 20 days after creation, the files will get automatically deleted, and sometimes sooner. So if the disk is, well, I said it's unlimited, but it's actually not. Of course, if the disk is really, really full, they will get deleted sooner. If we have a lot of space, they will get deleted later. So sometimes it's 42 days, but they will get automatically removed. This can be a nice thing, or it can be also a really upsetting thing. It's nice when you know about it. The way I use it is that I use this as a temporary space for my calculations. If they need to create temporary large files, I let them generate them. But I have to be careful that after my calculation, I copy back the data that I want to keep. And all the other stuff I just leave there, because then they will get automatically removed.
Yeah.
So since I know about it, it's nice for me.
Yeah, and it's important to copy the needed files just after you finish your simulations from work. I had an experience when I was using it. I don't know whether you know about the hexagon cluster. I used it when I was doing my research. So I had that experience. Everything got deleted. I couldn't retrieve, and I had to rerun the simulations. So it's very important that you copy the files after your simulation finished. And if you don't want it, you can leave it there. But it's okay. It's good if you don't want it, delete it as well, so that the file system is not being full.
Yeah.
And
so that part is auto-deleted. So in my day-to-day work, I personally use three of those that you list here. It's the home, but only for scripts and important outputs and maybe programs. I use the work that is now highlighted, but I use it for all the temporary stuff, or if I need to experiment with something, but I don't want to keep it. And then I use the cluster projects. And the cluster projects, that's again something that is limited in space, but there is much more space. It's typically shared with everybody in the same project. And this is where I keep my important files and sometimes Conda environments. So they are good to keep in the projects.
And we have this training project NN9N70K that we use all the instructors as well as all the participants for the who have access to the project will have access on the project. Should I show that on my screen probably?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, just so that you can see the screen as well. So I am on my home and under a directory now, but if it's the path towards our work is HCD cluster work. I can use the environment variable like user work. Should I try that rather than this?
Yeah, just that we can see that it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So it's user work. When you type it, it will be your work area, not mine. So if I do that, you can see that so this is my work area. So like similar to that, I can go into the project area. So just I don't have any environment variable for that, but our project name was NN9970K. So ls. So I have some. We have some files here from our earlier workshops. So these are the area you usually use. And do you want to say something about using the work area effectively and responsibly, Radovan? Not using the touch and try to keep the file forever there. What will happen? We have some a lot of trouble with some users doing that on Betsy recently.
Yeah.
And
so if you maybe you can just highlight again which part we are talking about. So this cluster work users. So that part, I mentioned that it's basically unlimited from the user perspective. And we also mentioned that files get automatically deleted typically 21 days after creation. But now in Linux, there is a command which updates the timestamp, and it's called touch. So you could now think, well, I will just write my own script that will touch all of my files 1 day before they get deleted. So then I get unlimited space forever. But this is not what we. So we ask you not to do that, because that breaks all our system. We have these quotas not to upset people, but because space is limited, it's a limited resource. We try to get as much publications and science out of every gigabyte and CPU cycle. And if people write scripts that automatically update timestamps to circumvent this, it's a big problem, not only for us, but for all the other users. So please don't do that. If you read the fine print somewhere, you are not allowed to do that. A much better way is to copy the important stuff somewhere else, because this cluster work is not meant to be a permanent archive. We have other systems that are meant for archiving data, and we will discuss that in a moment.
And it's a good point. Otherwise, also to remember that if you delete something from your user work or it is auto-cleaned, we cannot retrieve the data because it's not backed up. So please remember to copy just right after you are done with the simulation or your run. That also happened many times to many users, that they forgot to copy from user work and it is auto-cleaned and they lost all the data.
Yeah, it's a temporary space.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I would like to mention is a home directory. Everyone get 20 gigabyte and 100K quota. That's default for all users. And the project quota is depends upon your project application, and if you or your project manager or owner apply for a project, you get a quota on the HPC or on the storage system. That would be different for each project, from project to project. But home is kind of default for everyone.
Yeah, and I think also for the project there is some default that everybody gets, but if you realize that you need more,
yeah,
then please write to support and say that, well, really, if you can motivate why it should be more in the home or more in the project, you can get more.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes when people ask for more home, our answer is that sometimes they actually didn't know about all the other spaces. So when somebody asks me, I want more home quota because I want to install a Conda environment into it, then my answer will be, there is a much better way to work with Conda environments, and it's much better to not have them in your home. But there can be really good motivations, then we will try to help, and we can allocate more if needed.
Yeah. Okay, one clarification. I was mentioning the quota on NIRD. That was in my mind. NIRD storage system, that is when you apply for a specific quota. And project, that is space is default most of the time. Yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay. Should we just try how to backup, how to retrieve from the backup if I delete something from my home area or project area, and then we go next to NIRD storage? What do you think?
I think this will be good to show, because it happens to everybody, and a little mistake in the script and suddenly the data is gone, and then how does it work with the backup? How does it work with snapshots, and where to find them?
Yeah. So just checking if there is any questions so far.
So there was a bit more clarification about this Docker images, but I didn't have time yet to reply, but I can also do that later in writing. And a new question coming in about storage performance.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure about that question, but please ask questions. We will go through the questions so that I don't exceed the time for the NIRD and other things. Just we could go a little bit further on how to retrieve backup. There is a link on the storage area about backup. You can see that under home directory, that's backed up with daily snapshot only if storage quota is enforced. So that would be the backup home folders. So if where is it your backup? Actually, it is backed up on the NIRD storage system, but you can copy from your login nodes from your home directory if you want to retrieve some data. I will just show the path and how to see the data here. Just let can you see my screen?
Yes.
I think. Is it readable, or I just need to?
I think it is readable.
Okay. So now I am under the project, so I just will go to my home directory. Okay, my system is a bit. And if I want to go see where is my backup, home backup is stored, I will let me cd to cluster rather than list. So this is the Bast cluster backup home and my username. So you would see that all my files are here. Yeah. Is it, I could see that something is not right. Okay. Can you see that on my screen? My files?
Yeah, I can see them.
Yeah, so you can copy it from here if you delete something from there. But you also, the same for the project as well. It is linked here on this backup page. You go cluster backup if you are under Saga and your project name, and you can retrieve it. But it's the same time. In addition to the daily backup, there is snapshots that you can like I have changed something lately from last week. There are weekly snapshots, daily and weekly snapshots from that. Also, you can you want to go back to last week's or last 2 days, that you can retrieve it from your snapshots. I will just show you how you can find it. So it's so Alice cluster home to snapshot. Okay. Oh, my screen is frozen. Good. Okay, let me come back with a terminal. I think I need to log in again. I will try it on from. Yeah, from it's working. Okay. Is it working for you, Radovan, on the terminal?
Means that I can see your terminal, or?
Yeah, I'm kind of frozen on my terminal. I don't know why.
And what did you try now? I can try.
I tried to show the snapshots. Maybe you could.
And you are on Saga, or?
Anywhere. It doesn't matter where it is.
Just this thing, and if it works, I can show.
Yeah.
Okay, also here's some freezing going on.
Okay.
Demo effect. So sometimes the file system seems a little bit sluggish, but we can explain what often the reason is. Very often, actually, it is some file system heavy operation, and very often it's a calculation that reads and writes millions of files. And this is the reason why we have this quota in place, because that puts a heavy load on the network file system. So maybe this is what I'm experiencing now on Saga when I try this. But maybe in the meantime, we can switch to the question number 7.
Yes.
So the question is about. So this is some fluid dynamic simulation. But I think what is the essence of it is that it's a lot of time steps, and at each time step, it seems that every process is writing its own data file to a shared folder, which means that if this is running on 1024 processes, there are 1024 files on each time step. So at the end, there would be 1,000,000 files after 1,000 time steps. And the question is whether one should work towards creating only one file per time step, or would creating multiple folders. So I think that multiple folders will not really make a big difference. Here we create lots of files at a time step, and this can slow down the computation, because maybe the computation then has to wait until the 1,000 files are written. I think it would help. What I would do is, I'm assuming this is an NPI parallelized computation, where there is one process that is the so-called master process. I would let the master process do the writing and reading, and the workers that do the computation, they communicate the results to the master process, and only one process should read and write. And I think this should help a lot with the storage bandwidth. So this is what I will try to do. I just want to mention that the other thing that can sometimes help is that if you have to deal with lots of files, and sometimes you don't have a choice, because sometimes it's not your code or you cannot change it. I think here you have you can actually modify the way it is written. Sometimes you cannot modify it. If I cannot modify it, sometimes I go into using containers, because then for the network file system, it can look like one file, but that can be the container. But then inside the container file system, it can look like many files. So this can be another strategy. And I know that I still need to answer the question 5 about containers, and we will also do that later in writing. I just don't want to interrupt the flow.
Yeah, we will come back. We will answer it there. But I managed to do it on SLAM without this, the history setting. But this is where I went cluster backup home snapshot. So I could retrieve my files from each last from 17th of May. Should we move into the NIRD system, Radovan, or is there anything more we need to add here?
I think we are ready to move on.
Yeah. Okay. So we have asked a question about are you a NIRD user? Type an O. Yeah, there are only one user, and user wants to use NIRD. If you remember, when you tried the backup, I said that it is in NIRD. So you kind of, if you are an HPC user, you will use NIRD some way. But NIRD is the National Infrastructure for Research Data. We have procured a new system last year, and it was production since almost an year and 2 months. So it offers storage services for your high-performance data analytics and data storage, and some cloud services, as well as we have a research data archive services on top of the NIRD. So there are some technical information, and this new NIRD is in a Lafayette Mine data center. You could check the link, and we will show a video just after 5 minutes. Maybe Radovan can share it later about where it is and how it looks like. That's a YouTube video. We will put the link there as on the collaborative document as well. So it is some technical specification about NIRD is that it's 2 separate storage system, one called data lake and one called data peak, one for performance for best performance and active data, and data lake is more for cold data. And so you could read a little bit on the documentation. So NIRD data peak, where we recommend to use to store active data, you get a performance, better performance than data lake, and it is spanned different tiers, like an performance tier and repository tier and storage, like that, 3 tiers if I remember correctly. And data lake has a flat structure. It has object storage for sharing data across the multiple project and some other features, specific features for the object storage, object storage. And I think the S3 functionality will be in production soon on this data lake. So when it was procured, it was almost 32 petabytes data last year, and we have an upgrade 6 months after that. It's together data lake and data peak. Together it has 49 petabytes now, and it can go up to 72 petabytes after all the upgrades. So it's an IBM based system, and it has IBM Spectrum Scale software. And as I mentioned, you have a performance layer on data peak with NVMe SSD flash drives, and total capacity 49 petabytes now, which will be upgraded, I guess, based on the user need. And data peak has 24 petabytes and 25 petabytes on the data lake. So as you see that data peak has better performance rather than data lake. So it is advisable, recommended to use data peak to store your active data, and if you want to do any performance. So the software on NIRD is IBM Storage Scale GPFS file system. So the inside data is ensured by the IBM They changed the name recently, I think, but IBM Storage Discover. That's what's the name, but the functionality when it was procured is the same, but it was a different name if I'm not wrong at that time. So you could, we could just check in-depth documentation for NIRD. Just mentioning that there are two distinct systems which is connected, and as I mentioned earlier, you can access data from the login node on each HPC from Saga and Betsy that we mentioned here, that Radovan explained about mounted, or what does it mean mounted, because NIRD is deployed in left-al data mine center, but the system, our HPC system, are in various places in Trondheim as well as in Tromsø. From is in Tromsø, right, Radovan, at your place?
That's right.
Yeah, so all the HPC log, you can access NIRD from all your HPC login nodes. So there are some information I would like to say about NIRD. There are how to access on NIRD, just like saga.sigma2.no, that you use the name login.nerd.sigma2.no. For using NIRD, using storage, you have to have a separate application, not the same HPC application. For data storage, is a different services. So the project owner or your professor who needs to apply for separate need to have a separate application. So then you will get a quota. So like some project will get some terabytes of storage, and some will get petabytes of the storage. And you can do some operations using the modules, just like you did. You can do it in Betsy or Saga, any other HPC cluster. We have module system on NIRD as well. Would you like me to show something about this on NIRD, Radovan, or?
Yes, please. So I also have a couple of questions.
Yes.
I have one myself and one from the chat. I don't know if should we take the questions first?
Yes.
So one question that I had is that you mentioned that for NIRD, I have to apply for the storage. So then when I apply, do I need to then specify, do I want this data lake or data peak, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that service in the application, it is different if you want data peak and data lake. So if you, the question I saw, that is the projects. Earlier, the data peak was named as tiered storage and lately renamed to data peak, because to convey the convey that this is for active data. So active data peak, and call data lake. That's what the renaming. That's why it's a renaming. So NIRD project with the project name and data peak is the same. That's a tiered storage system. And data lake is the flat structure. It was named from the beginning as a data lake itself.
And if I'm not sure which of the two, how do I decide? Like if I don't really know what.
It depends on your use. Why do you want to use? How to store your data? Like, are you going to use it actively, and you need to have a backup of your project data sets? Then you are supposed to ask for data peak.
I see.
Because backup is a service is available only on data peak, not on data lake. If you want to store your data and share it with many people, and your data is not kind of a cold data, I would say, then it's better to use data lake.
So the data lake is more like an archive. It's there for the next 10 years for people to download my research results.
I would say because the data, we have a research data archive on top of NIRD.
Okay.
That is different service.
Oh.
It is for storing data that you want to share with people, but the research data archive services is on top of data peak, the lower tier, not on the performance tier. But then the research data archive service is backed up on data lake. So you have this integrity of data that you will not lose if something won't happen, the data peak as well. So data peak data is backed up on data lake, but not the other way around.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So what Verma was I like? I could log into NIRD and just mention a little bit on the storage areas on it. I hope my system, I already logged in with because it was, I'm not sure it's going to be frozen again, but I logged into NIRD and I could just type the usage and then it will show me the resources I have it. Okay, is it not visible? Okay, let me come with another terminal. I have set it up a passwordless login on NIRD, so I will go because unfortunately I cannot share this history. Something is messing up with on my terminal. Can you see my screen properly?
Yes.
So I am inside NIRD now, and I type the usage command, and you can see that I don't have anything at all on NIRD now. So there is a limit of 60 gigabytes of data on your home folder on NIRD and 300K files, number of files. But when you, this is your home directory. This is not nothing about your project directory. If you want to see that, if you have a project directory on NIRD and you want to see how much quota you have, I can check one with my projects. I hope I could see. It's the same command usage, but you use -p option to see your storage on and then the project name. So I have the training project there. We really don't use it much. We are using for the NIRD toolkit. It is a services on top of NIRD storage system whenever we have a training. So it has 5 terabytes of data. And it is on data peak as well as on data lake. You can have both. When you apply, you can specify that you want to have storage on both data lake and data peak. So this training project, the same name, NSS 9970, has resources on data peak as well as data lake. Okay, and just to want to mention, there is a scratch directories as well. Same like HPC. It is not for permanent store. You can do some operations on it. Just want to mention something like that. If you want to access some software that will be available as a module system on NIRD, I could just I check the Python and it will show module avail Python and it will show you all this software available based on Python.
And this is then for like if I need to do some post-processing or?
Yes, on post-processing, you will have a better performance on data peak if you want to do that. I would highly recommend to do that on data peak because of the better performance. So yeah, as I mentioned, you will have a project area. If your project is on NIRD data peak, this is the path to store seed. I could go here and see NIRD data peak and NS970K. That's, I think. So there is no files here, but this is the path to go to data peak. And if you have project on data lake, which I have the same project on data lake, resources on data lake as well as so I can go to data lake and the project. Yeah, there are some data we used for previous year's course on data lake. So this is the path for both of the storage, data peak and data lake. Is there any confusion regarding that, Radovan?
It's at least clear to me now.
Okay, any questions? Okay.
There are some like ongoing questions that we will answer, but they are a different topic.
Yeah.
And then the question 10, I think you have answered that, but
yeah, I will write it here as well, and you can see this documentation which is quite updated. Yeah. So the next part is similar to HPC. We have snapshots on NIRD as well. Whatever in NIRD, that is both on data lake and data peak. But backup as a service is available only on data peak. But you could get snapshots from on both your home directory and project directory in data lake and data peak.
That's very nice. And we have a question about backup because somebody noticed that on Betsy, it's actually not the same way as we said, but I'm investigating it. So I'm in contact with colleagues and we will add more details as we find out. So indeed, it is not on Betsy, not the same way as on Fram.
Yeah,
so
we will update the documentation as well. If there is any difference, we find out. That's a good thing. I am sorry that I didn't check on Betsy. Usually all the tests are on Saga and From. So I kind of assume that things are the same on Betsy as well. Are you using a Betsy for a lot, Radovan?
Like for my kind of daily work, not, because my things are typically too small for Betsy, but
yeah,
really only for teaching.
So just a warning here, the snapshots, it's not permanently available, it's temporary. So if you want a permanent backup, you have to ask for the backup services on, and you have to have resources on data peak and have the NIRD backup services. So here are some, I'm kind of running out of time. So the documentation is here, how to retrieve from your files, from the snapshots, if something you delete it and want to retrieve it. And the commands, example commands are here. You can try it if something is happened. And just want to mention that there is a third-party services on top of NIRD. It is called NIRD Service Platform, which is a Kubernetes-based service. So you can access web-based services and toolkit as well as on this. But we will have a NIRD toolkit course sometimes in the autumn.
And just to give an example, so this would be like if you want to run a Jupyter lab close to your data, or an RStudio, which is then connected to your data in NIRD. So then this can be an interesting service. But
yes, and also there is a S3 kind of min.io where you can share your data to an external person. So these are the services. You can have a look on the NIRD Toolkit documentation, and if you want to get to know about the upcoming courses, you can subscribe to the newsletter, so you will be notified. So the NIRD backup, it is as a service that I mentioned. You have to ask for the services, and it is mostly that means who will do it. And there are some include exclude rules, but that is specifically for the project manager. So we are not covering that yet. And as we mentioned earlier, the NIRD is mounted on login nodes of the cluster. So if I want to copy some data from HPC, I could just copy it from CP with the CP command. Okay. So there are some comparison about what I mentioned. It's tiers, the tier storage system. That means that data peak have a more performance than the, and why it is, for what purpose it is designed for. It's for a better read rather than we discuss it here. What do you think, Radovan?
Yeah, I suggest that. And also maybe the same for the video. We have this
Yeah.
video about the NIRD mine, and maybe I posted the link in the
Yes.
notes, and maybe we can suggest that people watch it on their own time if they're interested.
Yeah. So you could see the 2 containers there. Somehow my Zoom settings is not letting me to have the sounds and things. I think I would like to have more questions on this, but that's okay. But you can see the videos here. That is, I think we have discussed most of the things we planned, and we are almost over 2 minutes. Is there anything you want to have a discussion, Radovan?
I just want to encourage everybody. So if you still have questions, please keep them coming. We even if we close the course now in a few minutes, we will still be clarifying some of the answers. And if new questions come in, we will answer them. And then later you can also find these. We will archive the Q&A so that you can also find it later.
Yeah, and we will publish the video, and I will make sure that there is no content or username as visible on the recordings, published recordings. So I don't have, and it was a good session and more interactive rather than we go for any exercise. But all the materials are available. We will get back to you about the bed sitting.
How do we ask participants for feedback? Is this
yeah, that's a good idea. I forgot. Should we ask feedback for the day end of? Yeah.
So we really like to. It would be nice to hear from everybody. You can add 2 sentences. 1 sentence on tell us one thing that was particularly good, and one bullet point on what should we do differently. What should we remove, change, add? That helps a lot when preparing the next editions of this. And thanks a lot, everybody, for participating, for listening, for your questions.
Yes, thank you so much. And please give us feedback. And we come so far with your feedbacks so far because it's since last 3 years, we are continuously running courses, and we are taking the feedback very seriously. And it's very helpful. This is the gift you can give us. And thank you so much, Radovan, for joining me. And as you know, everyone is busy with things, and I think only 2 of us are away from the biannual gathering.
Yep.
Mostly.
So we miss out on the meeting, but then we were able to be here on the training. So thanks a lot, Dhanya. I learned new things.
Me too.
And hope to see everybody in future.
Yeah, and I have to check that Docker thing because I didn't really get what exactly it is. Thank you for the questions. But if I will open this question for some more time before archiving. If you have more questions, come back after this session. We will keep 10 minutes. I will be here if you want to join anything. And the feedback, I would really like anything to improve. Thank you for the good comments as well, but the improvement part is something I'm looking forward. And thanks for your participation. And one thing I would like to mention is that we have a scientific computing workshop coming up in early June, 2nd week of June. If you would like to sign up for it, please do that. It is it's 2 different topics on 2 half days. And please subscribe to our newsletters, Sigma 2 as well as HPC newsletters, where we announce our courses. And if there is anything you want to, you need help, contact us on support or training at nris.no. And you can also contact me in person. So most of the time, and 99% I will reply to emails. So you're welcome to send me email as well. Okay, thank you so much for your participation. I will stop recording here now. and I will be here next 9 minutes.